What was like the specific industries that you targeted people to podcast? And when you started your podcast, was it just any business owner or like specific niche markets?
Literally any business. If you owned
Okay.
a business and you had a pulse, you were
You
a
were on
guest on
the
my show.
radar, yeah.
When I had hair back in the day, my barber was my first guest. I'm sitting in his chair one day and I say, hey, I'm starting a podcast. Would you be my guest? He's like, what's a podcast? And sure.
Yeah.
Most people didn't even know what a podcast was. And I had my realtor was on my show, my
Okay.
daughter's dance teacher, both of them. Just people that I knew in my sphere of influence that had businesses because, again, I didn't have a strategy or a goal. I just wanted to get in the minds of business owners to learn, man, how did you break over that hump and how did you break free? Over time, naturally, we developed some strategy
Right.
and some focus and intention. But when I first started, it was, if you had a business and you had a pulse, you were a good guest to be on the show.
Okay. And did you buy all the equipment right away then too?
See, I already had it because I'm
Okay.
a singer-songwriter, so I had a mixer, I had mics, I had all of the equipment, and so knew how to use it because I had, for years I had traveled and technically, Hunter, I'm a professional singer because people have paid me U.S. dollars to do it.
Really?
So I kind of already had some of the skills that I
Yeah.
needed. It was just a matter of restructuring, reframing those skills and using them for podcasting.
So that was the equipment that you started this business with then too as well?
Yes, yep. So I had two mics. I had a mixer. I had a headphone amp, my laptop, and then a wireless router. And that's what I started with.
And when you started this business, would you originally travel to the people? Because right now you have locations. Would you originally travel to them?
Yes.
Okay.
Definitely didn't have a studio.
Yeah.
Didn't want to invite them to my basement at home. So I would go to their office, and I would set my mics up and do the interviews.
Huh, interesting.
Yeah.
So can we talk about kind of like a metamorphosis of the growth of the business? So you started with that, like you'd go to them. When was like the studio come into play where you bought that so people could come to you?
Yeah, so around 2019, the end of 2019, we really grew to the point where us going to people just wasn't feasible anymore. The volume just didn't make sense, and the expansive or the Serendipity Labs that's here in the Mayfair collection was opening at the time, and I thought, what a wonderful opportunity to be in front of business owners and around business owners. And we set up shop there just before the pandemic hit.
Oh, really?
Ironically, and then didn't even get to do our grand opening, and pandemic hits and nobody's doing podcast interviews. And so we had to really figure out, okay, what does that mean for the business? How do we pivot? How do we survive when our business is built on in-person interaction?
Right.
And you literally cannot have in-person interaction.
Huh. What was your pivot? How did you do it?
We went online, virtual, like
Yeah.
everybody else. I was more open to being in person, so I would come into the studio, conduct the interviews virtually, and then once things started opening up, we had events and collaborated with other businesses who were in the space. So we just kind of got through it like everybody else.
What was it like getting that first client? Did you have a posting that you posted or something like that, or how did you get the first client?
Somebody walking by and they saw the
What?
sign and they
Really?
stopped in and they're like, hey, what are you doing? And we told them what we did and they're like, yeah, we want that. And that's how we got
No
our first
way.
client. Yeah.
And then how do you grow it today? How do you market it?
Word of mouth is big for
Okay.
us. Just doing our best to serve our we call our clients residents, serve our residents well, and they tell other people about us. Naturally, social media is an important part of our strategy as well, but really shaking hands and kissing babies. That's what I do.
Where did you come up with that? Like the podcast town mayor of podcast town residents. I like that like lingo. Where'd you come up with it?
Yeah, funny story. So I was trying to grow the business to help more people at a rate that they could more easily afford. And so I said, I know what I'll do. I'll do a coaching program and coach people around how to start their podcast, how to grow it, monetization, the planning and management, and all the stuff. And then my business coach at the time, he's like, yeah, Elzie, I think that's a great idea. You have the experience and you seem to be a great teacher. I think that would be a good idea for you. And he said, well, just keep it simple. And of course, I did not keep it simple. I came up with this whole grandiose name for it. I called it Podcast Town because that's where people go to grow and thrive in podcasting. And I brought it back to him and he said, I think that's a great brand. And at the time, my podcast name was Enterprise Now. And he said, well, that's the brand. I said, great. I'm glad you like it.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, I don't think you understand what I'm saying, Elzie. Enterprise Now is cool, but I don't know what that means. Podcast Town is the brand. And after about 20 minutes of kind of going back and forth, he finally just said it. He said, squash Enterprise Now, rename your company to Podcast Town. And so I listened to him, and we rebranded as Podcast Town. And so again, you know, just through coaching and just mentors, I had Mr. Pat Miller, you may know him, came up with the title of the mayor. He said, Elzie, the way you show up, the way you preside, you're the mayor. I'm gonna call you the mayor of Podcast Town. And it kind of stuck. And so and I like the mayor as opposed to the king or the president, or because my personality and the brand personality, we come to your graduation, we come to your backyard birthday party. Like we're among the people. We're not above the people, right? And so the mayor and the town that sort of speaks to that, and that's the heart of our brand, right? Is we want to be a place where every brand's voice is heard, not just the ones who can afford, you know, $10,000 a month, but every brand, because every brand needs to have their voice heard. So that's what we sort of try to communicate with everything from calling our clients residents to me being the mayor to us being a community. Because that's what we're all about in terms of our organization and how we want to be viewed by the community.
Huh.